I'm going to try something a little bit different for me. It's not going to affect you at all, except you'll have to listen to it if you want to. There's the door. That's okay. I don't mind. But I might get a bit lost because this is something a bit different for me. So before I get lost, let's open Bibles, phones, whatever you've got, and look up 1 Corinthians 13. Then you at least have something to come back to. Okay, so all looked up already. 1 Corinthians 13. Okay. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I'm nothing. I don't know, moving mountains is pretty impressive, but to have no love and that be nothing. That's what it's saying. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, doesn't sound so fun, but have not love, I gain nothing. And then the list. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, and so on. Now, those couple of verses in the middle, from 4 through 7, I read them very quickly, but I want to go through them a little bit more slowly. So I want to start with my first statement. Love is not about ignorance. Love is not about ignorance. You've heard it said ignorance is bliss, and that love is bliss. Well, if love's not about ignorance, I'm not sure that bliss follows. Love is not about ignorance. I want to tell you a bit of a story about my first boyfriend. And this is where it's unusual because I don't normally talk about things like this. But I was 15, he was 16. He lived just next to the school, so it was really good because if I felt like not being at school for lunch, I would disappear. My parents don't know this. And I would go to Mark's place and hang out with Mark. Mark was an interesting sort of fellow. He was very quiet, very subdued, didn't say much, which suited me because I said a lot. And we got along really well. I remember one day after a dance or something like that, they used to run the dances at my school on Thursday nights because I was an Adventist, so I didn't go on Friday nights. It wasn't an Adventist school. But because I was on the SRC and stuff, I said, well, let's just have them Thursdays, then I can go. And they said, yes, why not? So we used to have our dances on Thursday night so I could go. I know some of you might think that's terrible, but I thought it was fantastic. So one night after a dance, I went home to Mark's place, just briefly, because it was walking distance. The town had 400 people in it. That was the population, so it's not far from the School of Arts to Mark's place. It's about 500 metres. About 50 metres to the school from there, so very easy. And I remember walking into his house, followed him into his house. He walked past his parents, I think his dad, didn't say a word to his father, not a single thing, and his father didn't say anything to us. And I just walked in, I'm like, is this all right? Like, you're bringing a girl home? Oh yeah, it's fine, I don't care. Walked in, went into his bedroom, he showed me his record collection, like LPs. Like, he had some cassettes as well, which is really modern. And then I was looking at them thinking, wow, that's really terrible music. Who is this guy? I didn't know anything about him at all. Anyway, we went to a party a few weeks after that, it must have been, and it was my friend Adam's party. And Adam and all his friends, who were all older than him, were all sitting in a room that was filled with smoke. And I went to go in. I don't think Mum and Dad know about this either. So I went to go, I should have sent them to the other church. I went to go into the room and Mark says to me, no, you don't want to go in there. So why? Like everyone else is in there. No, you don't want to go in there. It smells a bit weird. Oh, let's go for a walk, he said. So off we went for a walk. I'm like, what are they doing? Oh, they're just smoking. Yeah, but what are they smoking? It's like, oh, they've got a few plants in the roof. They've just pulled them and done what they had to do, and they're all in their smoking pot, absolutely stoned out of their minds. I didn't know. It's because Mark had taken me off for a walk. So we went off for a walk together. Whenever we walked anywhere together, we never held hands. We thought about it, but we didn't. I'm pretty sure we talked about it, but we didn't hold hands. And we certainly never kissed, because that's just, why would you do that? So that's my first boyfriend, Mark. and I hang out with Mark for quite some time, about 6 months or so, which is a long time when you're 15. Thought he was fantastic, and everyone thought when we walked off from the party and didn't get stoned that we were going off for a little romp somewhere, and we didn't even hold hands. So, ignorance. I found out one day at school, because we did agricultural studies at school, we walked past the ag shed and it was peppered with holes made by air rifle pellets. Has anyone ever used an air rifle before? Illegally? Anyway, it was full of holes, and I remember one day after school talking with Mark about this and saying, what is going on? You know, the ag shed's full of holes. There's water getting in, it's wrecking all the ag equipment, and I'm really frustrated, and what can we do about it? And he said, oh, come here. So I went to his place. He pulled his air rifle out of his house. It was him. He'd been firing air rifle pellets into the ag shed because he was bored, because he was a townie, lived in town. I lived out in the sticks, and he was bored. I did not know a thing about Mark. Would you agree? Yeah? Not a thing. And he was my boyfriend. I didn't know anything. Okay, let's read this. Love is patient. He wasn't my boyfriend after I found out he'd been shooting holes in the ag shed. I dumped him. Love is patient. Love is kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It isn't proud. It isn't rude. It isn't self-seeking. In light of all those statements, love is not these things, because love is knowing. Don't you think? If love can be none of those things, if it has to be kind and has to be patient, if it's not envious, it means you must know something. If you're going to envy something, you've got to know something about someone. It doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it isn't proud, it isn't rude, and it isn't self-seeking. So love must mean, if it's not all those things for me, it must mean something for you, that I'm giving something for you. Does that make sense? Is it a gift? Love means knowing. Mark and I didn't really know each other, so I would say that wasn't really love. True? Love is not about enjoying wrong. Love is not a live and let live philosophy. And if you look around the church today, there would be a lot of people here that you don't know much about, and you just think that's okay, they can get on with their life and I'll get on with mine. True? Self-protective, somewhat important. Love is not about live and let live, and it's not about enjoying wrong. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but I'll tell you a story about that too. I had another boyfriend. His name was Rick. Rick used to row for Great Britain. This is my only, high-flying boyfriend, until my husband, this one. He's at home with my kids because he's a champion. Now, Rick came over to Australia. He got on the bus with me from town, 400 people. We'd caught the bus along our bus route, and I was thinking, why is he on our bus? He's English. What is he doing here? And then he got off at my bus stop. So my bus stop was a ways from the house, so he had to be going to the house. I'm like, what are you doing here at our farm? So he was going to pretend to break in one of our horses. He didn't do a very good job, but I thought he was fantastic. about a year later or a year and a half later, after several very many page letters, I sold my cow, I think, and my sheep, and got some money together and bought a ticket to England. I didn't need them anymore. I was finishing, year 10 that year, and I was heading off to a different school for year 11 and 12. So I sold my livestock and bought my ticket to England, and my parents let me go. It's a little bit crazy, but they did. And they actually helped me out, gave me some money. That might say something about me. I don't know. So I went to England and I stayed with this fellow's parents. His dad was a commander on the Royal Yacht Britannia, so he was, well-to-do. They called themselves upper middle class, which was nice. So I went to stay in their house. Now, the problem with Ricky is that he was about... I've got a photo of me standing tall, and he was about that tall. He was really tall and really strong and really... How old was he? 17. Is anyone here 17? Any 17-year-old males? Just girls, stay away from them. Just calm yourselves down. Right. He was difficult to deal with. And I found going out with him quite challenging. And we went to a beautiful party, a New Year's Eve party at his friend Harry's house. And, walked in the door. Downstairs was as big as this auditorium easily, and had a huge kitchen. It was 4 stories, this place. So it was a basement underneath. That's where the party was. His parents were cooking in the kitchen. They prepared this 5 courses, some huge number of courses. We had mountains of silverware at our table and the whole candelabra and everything. And all these 16 and 17-year-old jumped up nobodies. And I was one of them. And had this fantastic meal. Then we all went downstairs and most of them were drinking, and Ricky disappeared, and Harry, his friend, had been assigned to me to look after me so that I wouldn't go looking for him. Sneaky. Bit rude. But anyway, Harry was nice, so Harry stayed with me. Ricky disappeared with someone about this tall and very blonde, and very attractive, also a rower. They disappeared for about half an hour and came back, and I wasn't drinking. I was just sitting there going, okay, this is really boring. I expected more of a 4-story mansion than this. And I had to learn that perhaps that wasn't love either. It's not easy. And love is not about enjoying wrong, and it's not about live and let live. Did I stay with Ricky? No. I came home to Australia. And I read this passage. Love is not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrongs. So if we start with, talking about my anger with Ricky, and then progress to talking about my anger at myself. What about my own record of wrongs? Why had I decided to go out with somebody who was not kind to me? Why was I so blind to what he wanted and what he was doing? So I was trapped, I suppose, by my own anger, and I recorded my own guilt. Do you have a record of your own guilt? I was afraid of myself more than I was of him, because I was afraid of my own guilt. Love is not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrongs. So love means openness and not fear. I didn't feel safe and I didn't feel free with Ricky. So we went our separate ways. Good decision? Good decision. Next passage. If you're still looking at your Bibles or your phones or what have you, We've got here, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. And I want to talk a little bit about the Greek language here because I found it really interesting when I looked it up in the Greek. Love does not delight in evil. The word evil here is in every other passage in the New Testament translated either unrighteousness or injustice. And it's just here in the NIV they've decided to call it evil, unrighteousness or injustice. And then the Greek word they use is adikia. Is anyone up on their Greek mythology and know who Adikia is? Adikia is the Greek goddess, and this is a letter to the Corinthian people from Paul, so they were all up on it. And he uses this word Adikia, who is the Greek goddess of injustice. And immediately for the people listening to this, they would have seen a picture of, in their minds, which is quite common in archaeology, of the Greek goddess of justice hammering to death the Greek goddess of injustice. And this is their ancient Greek, picture of love, of justice and injustice. Justice stands up and hammers the heck out of injustice. So Paul takes this image and he puts it in this passage on love and overlays it with something else. Now, I don't have a story for this concept. You know, we've talked about love not being ignorant, but love means knowing. Talked about love is not about enjoying wrong. It's about openness and not fear. And now love does not delight in injustice. And so you have this visual image of this just goddess enjoying the fact that she knows about all the injustice in this other goddess, and so she has this power over the unjust. Can you see how that works? And can you feel it in yourself? If you can see something that's wrong, and you know it's wrong, there is a degree of delight in that, isn't there? Where you can stand back and say, I didn't do that. I didn't make that mistake. That wasn't me. Look how wrong they are. Does that hit a nerve with you? Do we delight in injustice, just like the goddess of justice? Because Paul takes that and puts it in here and says, well, actually, we rejoice in the truth. And this is not an ignorant truth, and this is not a live and let live truth. This is the truth. Reality. And this Greek word aletheia that's used when we have that phrase, rejoices in the truth, that is the word reality. So here Paul has juxtaposed for us this picture of someone delighting in knowing the wrong things about somebody else and feeling good because you know they're wrong, and puts it right next to rejoicing in the truth, rejoicing that you know that person that well and not using that to hunt them down and beat them up because you're right, but using that in a completely different way. So we've got these two goddesses, Deke and Adikia, justice and injustice. And injustice is being treated savagely. And we read the next verse. We know that love is about truth. And Paul says this, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. And so we can take that Deke, the goddess of justice, and just push her aside because she's not useful in this setting, is she? This fight back person, she's not useful here. Love is not about maintaining some sort of healthy ignorance of each other, of closing our eyes to each other and just being here together just because we are. Love is not about enjoying each other's wrongs and moving on. Love is about really knowing each other. Love is about providing freedom from fear and guilt for each other. Love is not about beating injustice down with a stick and delighting in our own savagery and our own justness. Love is about reality, about facing it squarely through the eyes of God with grace and peace, about keeping each other going with each other because He keeps on going with us. Again, the Greek, if you can just take a moment to bear with me. Panter is the word for always, so always, all the time, never stops, no start, no end. Panter, always. Always, everything. So, always, stregai is the word. And this is the word about always protects. And I've wondered about this passage in the Bible a few times. Always protects. Stregai just means literally I cover with a roof. And so for me, we have this picture of love not being something that is just and beats the unjust with a stick, but love is something that knows who you are and how fragile you are and puts a roof over you because it wants to protect you. Not stands and points the finger at all the things you've done wrong, but protects you and keeps you safe, honours you, even with your weakness. Panter stregai. And then panter pistuoi, which means trust, belief. And so we have this picture of a God who not only protects us, knows exactly who we are and protects us, but still believes in us. So I don't know if you can sit there and think, like I can, of all the things you've ever done wrong and should never have done. But God sees all those things and He still believes in you. He still stands guard over you and He still believes in you. It always believes. The next word, Pantel Pitt, always hopes. So even when you can't see, and I enjoyed this about the intro to the last song we sang, even when you can't see what's going on, God is always hoping, or always can see past where you are. And then the last word is probably my favourite, is Panter Hupomenai. It's hard to explain. Hupomenai is talking about things that just are, things that always are. So always perseveres, is unrelenting. So in all these things with us, God is unrelenting. So He's always trying to cover you, even though He knows exactly who you are. He's not trying to make a fool out of you. He is not trying to point out your wrongs. He's not trying to hit you with a stick. God is always trying to cover you. He is always believing in you, knows exactly who you are and believes in you anyway. He is always hopeful, always can see past where you are now. And He is always there. Love is not driven by pretense or fear, but by a deep, simple reality that is God with you. And that without God, not 1 second of anything is worth anything, because then there's no love. The reality of God and His extraordinary awareness of who we are, that He loves us passionately and without deviation, that He does not delight in any tragedy that besets us, that He doesn't tell our deep, dark secrets to everybody, but He always covers, that He always believes us, always sees us as we are, that He always hopes for us and always sees us and where we're going as something marvellous. He always carries us and all our reality above himself. That's this always, always, without ceasing. And this is love. I have a challenge, I suppose, and it's a big challenge, that in all our knowledge and in all our ignorance of the people around us, can we offer this gift that's given to us to them? And not just here, but anywhere. This gift that we have from God of this love that just never stops. Can we offer this to the people around us? And I would say that it's the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and all this love that binds us together in spite of ourselves with love. So, because of this interaction of love and reality, of God with us, who knows everything we are and everything we do and everything we think, and our attempting to comprehend it, this is God. And God is love and God is reality. So I want you to take that into the week with you and be hopeful, because it's extraordinary.